This is Mark Gunn Media.
Hit it!
Welcome to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. I'm your host, Mark Gunn. The views expressed on this program are those of the host and guests and not necessarily reflective of anyone or any entity associated with this broadcast. This episode, my conversation with Dr. Antonio Webb, who is an orthopedic spine surgeon from San Antonio, Texas, and one of the less than 1% of black orthopedic spine surgeons in the country. We'll be talking about the coronavirus vaccine rollout and the ongoing distrust that African Americans have in the medical field. I'll also tell you about my experience with taking the vaccine. I want to personally thank everybody who has subscribed to the podcast. And remember, you can download it at markgunmedia.com, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Google Podcasts, envisionradio.com, or wherever you download your podcasts. I also want to thank those of you that listen from anywhere in the U.S. and around the world. Bonjour to our listeners in France. Guten Tag to those of you listening in Germany. To my friends in Ireland. Dia Huch. Apa kabar, Indonesia. Konnichiwa, Japan. To my family in Nigeria. In Leo. Hello to my neighbors to the north in Canada. Hello, Bangladesh. Hola to my friends in Brazil. G'day in Australia. And hello to those of you listening in the UK. We would love to hear from you, and you can reach out to us by going to our website at markgunmedia.com or through envisionradio.com. Earlier this week, in his very first press conference, President Joe Biden laid out his plans for getting more Americans vaccinated.
We're making progress on vaccinations, but cases are rising, and the virus is spreading in too many places still. That's why today, I'm taking these steps to make our American turnaround story, our vaccination program, move even faster. Thanks to all the work we've done these past 10 weeks, the added steps I'm announcing today, with them, I'm pleased to announce that at least 90% of all adults in this country will be eligible to be vaccinated by April the 19th, because we have the vaccines. For the vast, vast majority of adults, you won't have to wait till May 1. You'll be eligible for your shot on April 19th. The final 10% are eligible no later than May 1. Due to the steps we're taking today, 90% of Americans will be within 5 miles of a location where they can get a shot as of April the 19th. So we're moving toward 90-90 by April 19th. That is by April 19th, 3 weeks from today, 90% of adults, people over 18 and over, will be eligible to get vaccinated. 90% of all Americans will be living within 5 miles of a place they can get a shot. And of course, it'll take time for everyone to get their appointment. It's a big country. And as fast as we're going, we still have a long way to go to finish this vaccination effort. In fact, we aren't even there. We aren't even halfway yet. But being at 90-90 just 3 weeks from today should give hope to the country. Let me close with this. The progress we're making is a significant testament to what we can do when we work together as Americans. But as I've always said, we still need everyone to do their part. We still are in a war with this deadly virus. And we're bolstering our defenses. But this war is far from won. Together we have so much to be proud of in the past 3 weeks. Past more than 3 weeks, past 10 weeks. We also have so much to be sorrowful about. Nearly 1,000 Americans a day are still dying from COVID-19. As we approach 550,000 deaths in a single year. Until this country is vaccinated, each of us has to do our part. We have an obligation, patriotic obligation. Wash your hands. Stay socially distanced. Wear a mask as recommended by the CDC and get vaccinated. Get your friends and family vaccinated when you can help. Now's not the time to let down. Now's not the time to celebrate. It is time to do what we do best as a country. Our duty, our jobs, take care of one another, and fight this to the finish.
The effort to get Americans vaccinated even has the cooperation of 3 former presidents. in the form of a public service announcement that began airing just a couple of weeks ago.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
Despite the science, you still have quite a few Americans that are skeptical about taking the vaccine.
Convincing skeptics to get the vaccine is easier said than done, especially in rural areas that are heavily Republican.
Why is there this hesitancy here that is prevailing based off of conversations we've had with folks? And these numbers are reflected in polling where self-described Republicans across the country, about half of them say that either they're not going to get a vaccine or they're going to wait and see.
I don't care if I look like the wise guy or the dumb guy. It's my decision. I just decided I'm not going to do it. I'm a guinea pig if that's the case.
Yeah, I'm not going to get the COVID vaccine. I don't feel like I don't know. I just feel like I'm good. I don't need to. I take vitamins and whatnot, and I'm pretty healthy, so.
Vaughn, you did find some people who got the vaccine, so what did they tell you?
Oh, I've heard quite a few people say they're not going to get it. They're afraid to put things in their body. They're afraid they're going to get something from it. They're afraid that I don't know. I haven't heard any good reason why people aren't going to get it.
All you got to do is go to Facebook and you'll get bombarded with the people thinking that the vaccine is going to kill them.
You're seeing this reflected nationally in these mostly largely white conservative rural communities, even up on Capitol Hill in the U.S. House. There are still more than 100 members who have declined to receive a vaccine despite it being available to them over the last 3 months.
And as anybody in the black community will tell you, that skepticism is especially prevalent, and all you have to do is look back to this country's history.
Yes, I'm skeptical.
In many black neighborhoods, the resurged demand for equal opportunity still visibly echoes.
Yeah, it speaks for itself.
But blacks aren't a monolithic group. Opinions vary from age to region on issues including the COVID-19 vaccine.
Because of Tuskegee. Because of what happened.
Alabama native Harrison Moore is referring to the 1932 Tuskegee syphilis study, a 40-year study that rocked the American medical establishment. A panel who reviewed that study found hundreds of impoverished blacks were misled, not given adequate treatment or penicillin for the disease. It also led to the government paying reparations to the living participants and their families.
The ripple effect exists today.
The Tuskegee syphilis study was why I chose to work in underserved communities.
Dr. Yolanda Hardy, Palm Beach Atlantic School of Pharmacy Assistant Dean and Associate Professor, says the study created a culture of medical mistrust and hesitation.
It was definitely real. And then we also have situations like Henrietta Lacks, where her cells were being used without her or her family's consent to continue doing research in cancer.
Dr. Hardy wants to remind the public there's been sweeping changes in both policy and regulation, but she also wants more historical understanding and awareness from providers.
Because that's going to help start the communication between the providers and the patient, so the patient can be able to ask questions so that they can start to make a decision that they feel is an informed decision about what they want to do.
That's the solution, is being well informed.
This is a death in life situation.
Coming up, as the vaccine continues to roll out, so does the skepticism among the black community. I'll be talking with Dr. Antonio Webb, who is an orthopedic spine surgeon out of San Antonio, who has taken the vaccine, and we'll get his thoughts on whether or not you should take it. I'll also share my experience with taking the first dose of the vaccine right after this. If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. If you're listening to this program right now, this is where you'd hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshots Straight from the Hip, your commercial is professionally produced and gets a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshots Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program unlike anything else in the marketplace. Episodes are available for download on iTunes, TuneIn, and MarkGunMedia.com. And depending on how you tailor your message, the potential for new and repeat customers is that much greater. Best of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you'd like more information on how you can be a sponsor of this broadcast, call Mark Gun Media Inc. at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. 888-407-0283 or log on to markgunmedia.com. For downloads of this and past episodes and information about all the multimedia services we offer, log on to our website at www.markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com. All right, one of the biggest controversies that we as a community are facing is with the coronavirus. Not only are the disparities there when it comes to how it's affecting us, but there's a real glaring disparity in the fact that we're not getting the vaccine at the rate that other ethnicities are getting it. As a matter of fact, here in Louisville, Kentucky, less than 4% of the African American population has been vaccinated. That translates to just over 17,000 folks compared to the over 300,000 white Louisvillians that have already been vaccinated. Couple of things around there. There's access, that's part of the problem. And there is a severe fear and distrust because of our history with medicine, the medical community, and experimentation here in the country. However, we do have physicians that are saying, you know what, hold up. You may want to go ahead and take this vaccine. And I'm talking with one of them right now. As a matter of fact, this young man is going to be one of the most extraordinary doctors that we have in our community. Dr. Antonio Webb is an orthopedic spine surgeon. Just to give you some of his credentials, 8-year Air Force veteran, took a 15-year journey to become an orthopedic spine surgeon, had a chance to work in the motherland in Bangkok and Thailand, Port-au-Prince doing surgeries. And just last year, he was named one of the top 20 under 40 spine surgeons by the North American Spine Society. And it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Webb to the program. Dr. Webb, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. First of all, just your story alone, you know, besides everything happening with COVID is an incredible thing. You're only 32 years old, and you've got all this experience under your belt already.
Yeah, I think you missed a couple of years. actually 38, or actually, no, 39.
39. You know, that's still kind of young, though. Still kind of young, though.
Yeah.
Got through the Air Force. I was an Air Force brat, so I kind of know what that life is like. And and the chance, the opportunity to travel pretty much all over the world with spine surgery. What made you get into that particular field of medicine? It just seems kind of off the beaten path when you think about surgeons.
Yeah, you know, it's a specialty that, especially for African Americans, is not really it's for African Americans, especially in orthopedic surgery, it's less than 1.5%. For spine surgeons, it's even less than that.
Wow.
I practice here in San Antonio. There are over 100 spine surgeons. There's only 2 other ones that are here in town. So definitely a field that is not really represented by African Americans. And, you know, I had mentors who are African American, and they kind of inspired me to kind of go into the field, and I love the surgeries and just kind of fell in love with it.
And in addition to all of that, you are a motivational speaker, and you've got a book that was released a while ago called Overcoming the Odds. And one of the things that you do is you use your gift to talk with our younger people about your journey through medicine and everything else in life, right?
Yeah. And I basically, you know, I tell them my story about how growing up in Louisiana, I had a really troubling and rough childhood, and how I overcame all of that to get to the point today. I'm just really blessed to make it out of that environment where several family members went to prison, including my little brother, my little sister went to prison, and my mom was actually shot, and she's paralyzed from her waist down due to her drug addiction. So just growing up in that type of environment and then getting to the point where I'm at today, I'm just very blessed and very humbled to just be doing what I do kind of on a day in, day out basis.
Now, was that the impetus for you to go into spine surgery, your mom?
No, that was actually just less than 3 years ago that happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was already I was in my training still as a resident, and you know, it's one of those things where she was you know, we couldn't find her for a while, and this may happen when she goes kind of, you know, her kind of binges with drugs, and you know, came to find out she was in the hospital, had gotten shot. They had her on the OR scheduled to have a spine operation, and I, you know, luckily I was able to talk to the surgeons there, and I recommended that she does not undergo surgery. So they took her off the schedule, and just because of what the literature supports in terms of gunshot wounds to the spine, and she's doing better to this day.
Well, that's good. And we'll definitely continue to keep her in our thoughts for a much better quality of life. Speaking of which, now I also, in learning more about you, you have also done a little bit of work with the Ebola virus over in Africa. So this coronavirus thing is kind of something you're familiar with, right?
I wouldn't say it's something I'm familiar with. This is a novel virus, so it's something that we've never seen before. I was in Liberia right before the Ebola kind of outbreak first started. I was there doing emergency medicine as well as general surgery as a medical student. And when we got into country, we didn't know that, it would kind of get to that scale that it did. And there were several physicians that I worked with, including residents, the chief of the hospital, that passed away right when I got back. So we got out of the country, just in time, right before everything kind of kicked off. But, it certainly kind of reminds me of kind of that time when I was in Liberia, though. This is kind of what's going on right now.
Once again, we are talking with Dr. Antonio J. Webb, who is an orthopedic spine surgeon out of San Antonio. It's about the COVID-19 vaccine. And you know the numbers, you know the history, why it is that we are so hesitant, even though steps are being taken to get better access. How do you deal with that whenever you talk to somebody about this? Because I know you've taken the vaccine, right?
Yeah, I've actually had both doses. It's certainly one of those conversations where there's a lot of apprehension. There's people that are very reluctant and a little bit hesitant to receive the vaccine, and rightfully so in terms of our community and things that we had to kind of endure over the years, going way back to the 1800s where they were sterilizing women of color without their consent. Even to this day, there's some people that think that Black individuals don't have the same pain level as other people. So there's a lot of mistrust, going to the 1930s, to the Tuskegee trials, and the list goes on. So there's a lot of mistrust that, especially in our community. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of people that are very hesitant about taking the vaccine.
All right, so they talk about, depending on which company you're getting the vaccine from, they do talk about side effects, things as mild as a little pain at the injection site, maybe flu-like symptoms. Did you experience anything like that after you got the first and second doses?
Yeah, absolutely not. The only thing I did have was a sore arm in both doses. And I was a little bit I've heard of people who had some really more kind of pronounced type symptoms after that second dose. That's where most people get these symptoms is after the second dose. Your body recognizes that protein because you've seen it before after the first dose. So that's why people have more symptoms after that second dose. But I didn't have absolutely any, just a sore arm.
Now, how do you get to a place, and I'm sure this is a question that a lot of African-American doctors are having to deal with because, they're on the front lines and they are being role models and taking the vaccine as well. Those conversations are kind of tough. And, for the reasons that are traditionally cited. In fact, there was a study done a few years ago that revealed implicit bias within medicine to the point that you made that, we're perceived as not feeling as much pain, and so we're not medicated properly. How do you have those conversations with somebody who may be hesitant about taking it? And do you have the confidence in the vaccine that a lot of the companies seem to be expressing?
Yeah, so there's certainly, when people are considering the vaccine, there's certainly a reason why people are kind of hesitant about it. And, like I said, rightfully so. So whenever I'm making recommendations in terms of surgery or medications or treatments for patients, I always have to look at the risk versus benefits. For us as clinicians, we kind of scrutinize the clinical trials. We look at them, we evaluate them to see if that is something that will impact our practice. For me, I looked at all the trials that the Moderna and the Pfizer, and these are level 1 trials. They're double-blinded, placebo-controlled trials. So these are the highest echelon or type of trials that can be ran. And they were pretty effective in terms of their efficacious in terms of preventing SARS-CoV-2. So no one has died from the COVID vaccine, but over 400,000+ people have died from contracting COVID. So you have to look at the risks versus benefits. And the risk of contracting COVID-19, you don't know how your body is going to respond to it. Mm-hmm. Healthy patients end up on the ventilator, and we just don't know why. And most people are asymptomatic, though, but there's healthy people that have very severe disease, and we just don't know why. So I would not be willing to take that risk to see whether my body will either fight it off very quickly or have a hard time getting rid of that virus. So for me, risk versus benefits, the benefits of the vaccine outweigh the risk. And my job is not to tell people to take the vaccine, it's actually to lay out information so you can make that best decision for you and your family.
Now, yeah, I can tell you personally that in hindsight, I do believe that I did have the COVID virus back in October. It took me a good almost a month to get over it. And I'm a very healthy, almost 60-year-old. And to this day, and I have an appointment coming up in a week here to check this out. To this day, I have what I call the COVID cough. So it's one of those lingering things. So I need to get some chest x-rays, see if there's any fluid on my lungs or whatever. Because I've heard of people taking the vaccine and still having adverse effects, not from the vaccine, but the fact that they had the virus when they took the vaccine and didn't know it.
Yeah, so the individuals who have more side effects, I believe, are the ones who've had prior exposure. So they had COVID in the past. Your body recognizes those proteins, and your body. Hey, I've seen this before, so it's going to mount a more robust immune response than someone who has never been exposed to that particular what's called antigen or part of the virus that your body recognizes. So yes, that sounds certainly true. That if you've had prior COVID, you may have a little bit more side effects than most other people.
Well, I'll find out after this appointment, and then I may be put in that group of, well, okay, it's time for you to get the vaccine. So, you recommend, I'm going to weigh the options. Taking the vaccine is a heck of a lot better than going through at least what I went through. And I know there's some folks that went through even worse, had even a worse time in dealing with the virus itself.
There was a study that came out that showed that there were more black men in medical school in 1978 than there were in 2014. So that's a huge problem. And I just wanted to kind of speak about some of those issues and kind of my passions to kind of increase diversity in medicine.
I'm telling you, this is a young man you need to learn a whole lot more about. And where can people check you out on your socials?
Yeah, all of my social media sites are Antonio Webb, MD. Whether that's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. My website is AntonioWebbMD.com. And then for the documentary, it's OvercomingTheOddsMovie.com.
I would say that Antonio, growing up in Shreveport, at one time he kind of leaned toward with the wrong crowd, but I thank God he got with the right crowd, and I would say that I'm very proud of Antonio. He's accomplished a lot, and where he is today, I'm thank God for him. It's a blessing to have a son that's like Antonio. So I can't think of no more to say that I'm very proud of him, and I'm looking forward to a bright future and seeing him go forth and do things, because he's always been a giver. One thing about Antonio, he'll give you the shirt off his back, and he would go the last mile of the way to help people. So it's a blessing to have a son like Antonio Webb.
Yeah, it's something you definitely want to check out. And, as somebody that's getting up in age, as much as I respect the work, I hope I would never, ever need your services.
Yeah, that definitely scares a lot of people. I use a lot of the instruments that you have in your garage. I use a sagittal saw, I use a drill, screws, hammer, all different types of kind of those tools that, to decompress the spine and also the knee replacements. So, yeah, it definitely scares away a lot of people.
I was like, man, are you fixing a car or fixing my back? What's going on here, Doc?
They call it glorified construction workers and carpenters.
Wow. And I know there's a lot of time and a lot of dedication to going into that specific field of medicine. And I definitely appreciate that, because if somebody is going to need an orthopedic spine surgeon, well, at least I know one that you can call. So
there you go.
Thank you so much, man. It has been a real pleasure. Again, and looking forward to seeing what you're going to be doing in the next 40 years.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully I won't be seeing you.
Right. Once again, that was Dr. Antonio Webb, a orthopedic spine surgeon out of San Antonio, Texas, one of the very few Black orthopedic spine surgeons in the country. We were talking about the coronavirus, the lack of access for African Americans and the vaccine, and the hesitancy that we have as it relates to taking the vaccine. You can learn more about Dr. Webb on his website, AntonioWebbMD.com, as well as all of his other social media. And check out his documentary, Overcoming the Odds. So it's OvercomingTheOddsMovie.com. As an epilogue, since the recording of this conversation, I have had the first dose of the Pfizer coronavirus vaccine. Took it earlier this week, and the side effects were pretty much as the doctor described. So a little bit later on in the day, I did notice some soreness in my arm where the shot was given at the site. There was a little bit of swelling there too. And because I had contracted the coronavirus back in October, the side effects were somewhat pronounced. I got through the next day pretty much okay, but I noticed later on in the day, I started getting a little feverish, started getting some flu-like symptoms, and ended up going to sleep. So as of this recording, I'm still a little shaky, but the soreness in my arm is gone. So again, because I had the coronavirus, the side effects were a little more pronounced. You may not get anything other than a sore arm like the doctor did when it comes to taking the vaccine. And again, that is solely up to you. You have to weigh the risks against the benefits and the fact that there is more access to the vaccine as President Biden is making that vaccine a little more available, and he's becoming a little more aggressive in his rollout. He wants to get 200 million people vaccinated by April 19th. And you have several different retailers that are also offering the vaccination. People like Walmart and CVS pharmacies here in Louisville and other places are starting to make the vaccine available. So again, that's a conversation you need to have with your family. You weigh the risks against the benefits and then make your choice accordingly. Now, when you get both doses of the vaccine, the first time you get the shot, they're going to give you a vaccination card. It'll have information about when you're going to get your second shot. Hang on to that, because after that, the government is talking about making it a requirement for you to have that vaccination card in order to travel. And I know that there are some places like Kinko's here in Louisville and maybe across the country that will laminate that card for you for free once you get both doses of the vaccine. So everything is moving rather aggressively when it comes to the coronavirus and getting people vaccinated. But you still have to take precautions. Social distancing is still a norm. Washing your hands, avoiding a whole lot of personal contact. Don't rub your eyes. Wear your mask. And even though there are places like the state of Texas who have completely lifted the mask mandate, and there are other states that are beginning to follow suit, businesses do have the right to compel you to wear a mask when you're in their establishment. So you'll see a bunch of knuckleheads online whining and complaining about not wanting to wear a mask, and they get in a little bit of legal trouble for it. So even though your state may have lifted the mandate, doesn't mean that private business owners have done so. So that's a lot to take in. And again, if you haven't gotten the vaccine yet, watch your local media for information about availability. And again, that's a decision that you and your family will have to make as far as taking it, okay? That is this week's episode of Gunshot Straight from the Hip. Again, you can get our past episodes online at markgunmedia.com and anywhere you get your podcast. We also would love to hear from you as far as any feedback. You can reach me at mark@markgunmedia.com. We'll see you next week. You've been listening to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. The views expressed are those of the host and guests and not reflective of any business entity or anyone associated with this broadcast. If you have any comments or want more information on how to be a sponsor, log on to our website at markgunmedia.com or call us at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Thank you for listening.
Mark Gun Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.